Hi, my name's Jeremy Broun. Now, I don't usually show other people's videos on my channel, but I've made an exception today for a really talented woodworker called Paul Tozer, who's going to share a copy carving jig that he's made. He makes very fine guitars and mandolins and uses his jig for that, but also a lot more. So in this video he's going to explain how it works and demonstrate it also.
Hello, I'm hopefully going to demonstrate my 3D homemade copy carver. Can be used for all sorts of things. Specifically, this one has been made for making these carved F-style mandolins. But you can use it for all sorts of things. I think people make duck decoys and that sort of stuff. Why you would want to outwit a duck, I don't know. But this is what it is. Right, the general principle is that you need a big, heavy baseboard. This one is made out of an old fire door, and it's approximately twice the size of your workpiece. So there's your workpiece, there's your pattern, and you need a little bit of space all around them. So that gives you your main baseboard. The bulk of the machine is then two fairly long arms that are screwed to the baseboard and stick out the back. They're provided with some full extension drawer runners, just like you can buy in DIY shops or internet. I've used them sort of double sets, if you like. I've got one set on a horizontal plane, one set on a vertical plane. It just helps to eliminate the slight sort of rattle that you can get with just a single set. It just makes the whole thing a little bit more precise. It runs quite easily. Then the two arms are connected together by a long piece across the back, as heavy and strong as you can make it. I've reinforced the joint with this plywood web here just to make the thing nice and to that we've got a frame, again made out of fairly heavy section wood. It's a sort of parallelogram. At the corners there are hinges. They're just ordinary front door hinges, really, sort of brass or steel, doesn't matter, and that moves in this sort of way. That gives you a lot of your movement. You're probably already working out how it works. So we've got forward, backward movement, we've got side to side movement, and then the final dimension is given by these two components are hinged at the back, so that goes up and down on there. So you've pretty much got 3 degrees of movement. And then under here what we've got is a ball which traces our pattern, and a very similar sized round cutter that basically has to do whatever the ball does. Pretty simple technique, but it does work. Right, in use, thank you. The ball traces on the pattern. There's the workpiece. I've screwed the workpiece down, which is why I've got these funny little ears here. I'll saw them off later, obviously. And I adjust the height here. With this one, I can adjust that up and down so that when my ball is touching the highest point of my carving, my cutter is doing exactly the same. So I've done that because my pattern is actually a little bit thicker than my workpiece, because it's all built up on a baseboard. But it's a handy thing to have anyway. If you have a really hefty cut to take, you could actually adjust this so that you took a smaller cut first time and then adjust it later on for a second cut. This is not particularly deep, so I'm going to do it all in one go. And I think the only final thing to do now is have a little go at it and see what you think. Right, here we go. We'll switch it on and have a try. So, incidentally, the sort of power unit for this is obviously, it's an old trimming router. It's an old Wolf one, I think, became Makita. But the only point I was going to make is I've got loads of jigs involving routers, and I've got really fed up with just making a jig to fit a router and then taking the router out of that jig and putting it into another jig and all the rest of it. If you go around car boot sales, people virtually give you routers. They're so cheap. You might as well make a jig, bolt a router to it, and leave the whole thing all in one piece. Particularly where you don't require the plunge action. Or that's the stuff that usually goes wrong on a router. They don't plunge right. Right then, we'll switch this on and try and use it. Incidentally, in case you're wondering, the reason for these little bits of wood here are because the stock that this particular mandolin is made from is proper violin wood, and it wouldn't have been flat enough to be stable in a jig like this on the other side when I here's one I did earlier. When I hollowed it out this side, it would have rock and rolled a little bit without those. So basically, when I thicknessed this, I just stuck these little bits of wood on to help me keep it all upright and nice. Now I'm going to route this, and of course I'll pretend they aren't there. I should just route through them. They're only glued on. There's no pins or anything. So that's it. So this is what we're hoping to make by the end of this session. Basically, we've got this almost complete. It will need actual regulating to the very final thickness, but an enormous amount. It would probably take you perhaps 2 or 3 hours with a gouge to get to this sort of level of finish, whereas I can pretty much do it in 20 minutes with this, as you will see. Okay, so switch on. I usually switch it on in a nice safe position like this. Now, you've probably turned off by now, but if you haven't, you get the idea. I will go over everything at that sort of level and just rough it through, and then obviously the more times you repeat the passes, I will probably pass this way followed by this way, and eventually all these grooves will join up, and it's a bit like, depends how long you want to spend. You could get it to quite a fine finish, or personally I won't. I'll do it a little more than this. And then you go on to the scrapers and things, but the main shape will have been established quite nicely. I'll do a little bit more if you can face it, but right, here we are. We might even try and speed it up a bit. Can we do that? We'll try and sort of speed it up on the film or something, so it won't be quite so dull to sit through. Here we go. Right, well, hopefully that will have piqued your interest a little bit. I think it's quite a valuable tool, can be used for lots of different things. Doesn't have to be this big if the workpiece isn't going to be that big. The pattern may be just worth a little bit of a talk about. Obviously these have got a very specific purpose, and I don't know if you can see, but when I first made this pattern I discovered I wasn't quite happy with one or two details. And rather than scrap the whole thing, I've just built up a couple of areas that I wanted just with some 2-pack filler. the actual friction between this ball and here is so minimal. You could probably have done the filling with cheese. It wouldn't really matter. So it's not a particularly difficult thing. So that's just done. I could alter that at a moment's notice for something else, and it all comes good in there. Not if I was going to make 1,000, I wouldn't. But if you're making 10, good enough. There, and hopefully that was of use. If no one hates this, I might even make some more. Who knows? Right, thanks for watching.
Well, thanks for that, Paul. That's a really interesting jig. If anybody's interested in finding out more about it, and indeed about the guitars and mandolins that Paul makes, then please contact him directly. Thanks very much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.